Do you wish you could get virtual attendees to turn their cameras on? Is engagement the number one issue on your virtual meetings? Do you want your meeting to be the most engaging virtual meeting? Well, welcome to the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. In this podcast, we'll talk to the top people around the world in virtual meetings and give you, the listener, the best ideas to host engaging virtual meetings. Make sure that you click subscribe so you can get the latest episode of the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. Now, let's welcome your host, the author of the #1 Amazon hot new release, Engaging Virtual Meetings, John Chen. Good morning from the West Coast. This is John Chen with the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. One of my good friend Michael Wansley, who's a Grammy Award winner, was watching the Grammys and was saying that Bill Withers' "Lovely Day" has a 16-bar note, right? And that's kind of like one of the signatures to know how long to hold a note. His other one is he sings the national anthem a lot, and he says, you know, when you hit the big note, right, in the national anthem, when people cheer, that's how long is long enough to hold the notes. Again, a shout out to Robin Williams, who, of course, in Good Morning Vietnam, does Good Morning Vietnam, one of my favorite movies. What's coming up next, right? Well, first off, if you're watching here, make sure and whatever you're watching on, subscribe, share, like, or comment. We do watch here during the live in the show, and we'll give you a shout out if you're watching live with us. If you want to get this podcast and subscribe to it, get engagingvirtualmeetings.online. It'll be distributed on one of your 13 favorite podcast platforms. Top 2 are Spotify and Apple. And coming up October 1, 2, and 3, the Engaging Conference. This will be my 5th conference, and this will be the first year that we'll be going hybrid. You can get a free ticket here at engagingvirtualmeetings.com/con. Now, this gentleman, we're going to talk all things AV. We're also going to probably talk a little big data. I got a chance to meet this gentleman in California, and our starting and opening story is that we both jumped in to an event that had trouble with AV. And I think that makes us kindred spirits. This guy's a data engineer, a creative engineer, managing director of the Big Data Institute, mentors companies all around the world. Let's welcome the one and only Jesse Anderson. What's up, Jesse?
Hey, thank you for that great introduction. I was waiting for you to cheer, but you didn't. So let me try it again. Introduction. Thank you. Thank you. I held that note long enough.
Wait. Ready?
You know what? I want to do that again. I'm going to do it in my Mexican radio announcer voice. Gracias por la introducción. Hopefully you've listened to Mexican radio before.
I think then Jesse, that means that you listen to soccer, and I bet you could do a great goal. One of my favorites of goal is like when they got to do some riffing inside of it, right? He comes around, go, 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 go. That's kind of my favorite kind of Mexican soccer announcing.
And that is the way it is. Or if it's an incredible goal, it's a golazo.
Oh,
and if
I did not know
that. Yeah, golazo, un golazo.
I only know grande, I think, at this stage. It's only because of my star.
No, that's not a grande goal. It's a golazo.
Golazo?
Golazo. Golazo. Golazo.
Well, look, we know you're an AV guy because you got the mic. You even got sound baffling on your door. Bravo, right? I bet that was like,
And
I don't know.
around me off camera too. Can't you
See,
never have
so smart.
enough.
So smart. All right, well, let's do this. Jesse, thank you so much, all right, for coming to join the show. I'm so glad that we got a chance to meet in the real world. It's so weird, right? In the real world. And why don't we do, for my friends who don't know you, do us a favor, tell us who you are and what you do.
So I'm Jesse Anderson. I do quite a few different things. Sometimes this question is hard because it depends on the audience I'm talking to. Who am I trying to talk to? Who wants to know what I'm doing? But I'll give you the conference one that I do. So I speak at conferences all over the world. That time when John and I met, I was attending a conference in LA. But I mean, I've spoken at conferences anywhere from the US to Europe to Asia, all over the place. I've written 3 books, so I write quite a bit. I also write for other my website on blogs. I published in Harvard Business Review. I've been covered in Time Magazine. I mean, basically you name it. I've been in a BBC, lots of places. So I do all kinds of different things, but professionally, what we do is data engineering. So if you're ever curious about how companies like Facebook and LinkedIn and those sorts of places deal with your data, that's what we work with companies on how to do that. So it's not just technically, there's also this other part organizationally of how do you set up the team. So that sort of confluence there is what we specialize in, of how do you do it technically, how do you do it organizationally.
So fantastic, and I feel like big data got a big push with AI, right? You needed big data before you could get AI, at least in my playbook. And so, is AI, of course, rocking your world in terms of like accessing all that big data?
There is, in fact, that I was having a meeting before this and we were talking about, okay, so here's the thing that we would normally do. So there's this part of that data set, and then there's another part called graph processing, and that's another part of that data set. We've been doing that for a while. But then there's this whole clear text part, this chat aspect of it, where an LLM could take that data and start looking through it in a way that it's impossible because there's far too many chats that are part of that. But you're completely right. What sometimes people either misunderstand or don't appreciate fully is at the base of this is all this data engineering, AI, LLMs. So chat GPT is that's another way, what we call it in the industry, LLM. They sit foundationally on this data engineering. So if you ever think about why is chat GPT down? Why does chat GPT suck sometimes? It's generally that foundational issue is missing.
And for those, let's see if I got my acronyms right. My TLAs, 3-letter acronyms. LLM is large language model. Is that correct?
Correct.
Oh,
Large language model.
Shepherd, I'll take AI for 3.
So that is the industry way. If you're ever in a talk and somebody's saying chat GPT and they're kind of using that as the brand for everything out there, you know you're going to get some marketing hype, quite frankly. But if you're sitting in there and they say LLMs, you know, oh, person probably knows what they're talking about. I might get some morsel of nuggets out there.
Oh, and it is the time for imposter syndrome for sure in AI, as everyone pretends to be an expert. And the truth is, there were a collection of people who have been doing this for years, and now finally it's kind of hit the mainstream. So, yeah, which one of your success stories then in this data engineering? I'd love to hear, something like that. Here, I'll give you my short version of a story while you think about it. Is that I have my own company. I use Salesforce. And one of the things is, it took me like 4 to 5 hours, even though I only had a small company of 8 people at the time, and to get status on all the sales reps, who's saying like, "Where's your stuff? Where's your expense report?" So forth and so on. And so I architected something in a Salesforce dashboard that if they filled in the dates for when they finished things, which they needed to do anyways, that I could hit a button on the dashboard and it would tell me immediately who was on time and who was late. So then I could spend the other 3 hours and 50 minutes really talking to people specifically, not saying how is it, but where is this specifically. So that was, and basically what I tell people too is that this is when it happens when you harness data correctly, is that you can take something like a 5-hour process and turn it into 10 seconds if you do it right. So I'd be curious,
Yeah.
like, what
I,
examples do you
I
have,
I
Jesse?
would add on to that, and that is the important part is if you're doing something 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, as an engineer, that's when you think about this should be automated. And you may not be able to automate that. You may need to hire somebody, but at that point, think about this because you want to automate things not just for the speed, but so that it's done the same way every single time. Because with data, if you do it slightly different, you can have different results for the same thing, and that's when things go off. But
Yep.
you were asking me about a success story, and there's one that I have up on the website, and it's a conference talk I did, and it was with a company called USAA. They do banking and insurance products
Yeah.
and in the US for military members. And what was interesting there is the person I was up there giving the talk with was telling the story about a member who was in the middle of Afghanistan, actually getting shot at, and they were calling up the customer service line because if you think about that hierarchy of needs that somebody has, their biggest problem wasn't being shot at. It was actually that their money was not being deposited in their bank account, and they were worried about their house getting either foreclosed on or the rent being due and not being made, and their kids not being able to stay in their house. So it's just kind of crazy as you put this thing into what we have to do in data. We have to get this right because otherwise even people who are getting shot at are having to call up and say, hey, can you please make sure that my money actually goes in the right place?
That reminds me, remember tandem computers?
Of course.
Tandem computers was famous because they ran everything in parallel for redundancy. And I've got a great story from somebody who worked as a VP at Tandem, and he said, weirdest thing that ever happened to him was that they got a CIA computer, and they said it got a repair order in, and they said, pick it up off the street corner. That was it. There's going to be this multi mini frame computer, and they picked it up, and it had bullet holes in it. And it had shot one of the hard drives, but the other hard drive, of course, because it's a tandem computer, was working, but they wanted to put back in the redundancy. So then they fixed it, but they were at the bullet holes, and then they were instructed to drop it back off at some random corner in a big city. I thought those are the weird things that happen in IT.
And there's all sorts of questions there, like, did they put the bullet hole in it themselves or was it somebody else?
Oh, good question.
I
That's a
mean,
good question. I assumed it would be a bad guy, but
not necessarily.
the odds are friendly fire is higher sometimes, right, than non-friendly fire.
Or you could be like that the Texan on The Simpsons. He would always take out his guns and shoot whenever he got happy, and so maybe he was just happily shooting away, and yeah, and
Well,
that
that's
he was shooting up in the air, and there it just came straight down. There you go.
people never think about that in the celebration parts. Uh, all right, all right. So speaking of celebration, let's talk AV, right? So why AV? Why is AV so important to you? And I actually kind of really want to know, like, why do you feel the need to jump in? Like, again, I recently jumped in on something, and I just had what I tell people is I felt like Scotty on Star Trek. When somebody says they can't beam two people from two places onto one platform, and he goes, "Wait, I can do that, right? I can do that." And so the audio engineer and me, or the video engineer, comes in, and it just says that I just want it to be better, and I don't want it to be better for me to show off, to be honest, right? That's not my intention. I want it to be better for the presenter. There's nothing worse than being on stage dying that your slides or your videos or your mic doesn't work. So I'm just curious, Jesse, like why do you care so much about AV and why do you jump in?
I think it's because of if you have something interesting enough to say, something good enough to say, and you can't say it, that's a crying shame. So, I mean, you've probably done this before. For example, I live in Lisbon, Portugal. I had flown all the way from Lisbon, Portugal to LA, and other people had flown quite a ways as well. And you're thinking, okay, if we've spent a lot of time and a lot of money on trying to get this conference going, whatever it is, in this case, it was a conference, and you're sitting there thinking, hey, this is distracting. But there is another part to that where there is an in-person component and there is a Zoom component. It was a hybrid conference. And I kept on thinking, those poor people online, how can you even deal with this? Like they paid a
Yeah.
decent amount of money to get a pretty bad product. I'm thinking, how can this be acceptable? And so the person running that particular conference, their technology isn't their forte. And he thought he had the team in place, but the team wasn't quite right. So I just said, okay, here's how you do it. You do this, this, and this. And so the next time it was head and shoulders above. Like people actually gave compliments, and the
Ooh.
person who organized the conference was very complimentary. He said, "Oh, Jesse did this, helped us do this, helped him set it up."
Yeah.
And the team appreciated as well. So overall, I fixed one part, but there was another part that I couldn't fix, and that was the part that you fixed last time. I guess the other part of the moral of that story is sometimes things aren't technical. Sometimes things are team or people problems. And that kind of echoes back to what I was saying before of, yeah, we work with them on the technology, but oftentimes the technology is just one piece. The other piece is, yeah, you've got some people problems. You can't fix people problems with technology. And whether that's in big data, whether that's in here in conferences. And so you have to make a tough call. Can this person get to that level? Can they change? Can they understand this? What's the problem? What's the deeper problem? And you may have to find a thing that uses their talents better.
Yeah, this is why managers and directors and leaders are going to have a job for a long time. Is that, the phrase that I learned at Microsoft was this: the hard stuff is easy, but the soft stuff is hard. Right? What I mean by that, the hard stuff is the technology, bits and transistors and whatever working. And it's hard, but you got to, sometimes that's the easy part, right? The soft stuff, the people stuff, the team stuff, the role, your job, that stuff sometimes is incredibly hard because there's people and emotions and all sorts of other things at play. And yeah, when if I'm at somebody else's event, right, I got to think about how to step around that carefully too. So this is like what I love to. So Jesse, if you don't know, I have 27 years in team building, and what I love to tell people is that team building is just really politics in disguise, right? Which is around you still got to make people look good, even if they're not doing their job right. And somehow or another make an effect. Because in the end, there were 60 plus people in the room, and 60 really, every single person in there was a business owner. So a really high value audience. And it is so not fun when the AV is detracting, literally detracting away from the content. One of the ones that I really mentioned, I think, before is like, Dr. Jim Doty was like, he's done compassion. He does the science of compassion with the Dalai Lama. Who better, right, to speak around that? And he's speaking, and he's in this really part where I've seen it now too. I watched his TED talk, but he does. I think he works into there a place where he gets authentically emotional, and then
He's
his
at
mic,
the crescendo.
he's at the
He's at the
crescendo,
crescendo.
and then his mic cuts out, and it was like he was visibly shaken at that point, right? Because like when as a speaker, you can easily get knocked off of balance, no matter how much you work. Even if you're a compassion or a centered expert or whatever, when some of the things don't work. And so that really happened. And again, my heart goes out for him and the audience, because the audience is should be receiving this moment. It's a moment, and it's a powerful moment until it's not. I don't know. Have you seen any of the other big blunders here? I'll share one with you too, Jesse. Is Matthew McConaughey is on a gigantic virtual 2.5 million people logged in live to YouTube, and his MC gets caught on mute, and the chat blows up. Like literally, the chat is like on Twitch, 2.5 million people chatting, going, "You're on mute, can't hear you. Can you turn the volume up?" Right? Matthew McConaughey. So nobody is immune to AV issues.
No, nobody's immune. You can try to do your best, and you can try to I guess the sometimes I'll be teaching and there'll be long stretches where I need to talk. And sometimes what will happen is my connection has either lagged or stopped, and they're saying, okay, what did you say? Tell me what I was talking about. And the issue when you're a speaker is you can't quite go back to that role that you were on. You can go back and think, okay, this is normally what I say around this time, but it's still not that flow. So unless somebody's ever hit that flow, you don't know what that means. So as you were just mentioning, that speaker, he was in his flow. He was at the crescendo of his flow. He wasn't done with his flow, but he was at the crescendo, and it was the emotional peak of it, and then you were going to come down, and then you were going to have the lesson learned. That was the structure of his talk.
Yeah.
And it completely disrupted that, not just for him, but as you were right, for the audience too. The audience was now thinking about other things, not the emotional flow that he wanted you on.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, Jesse, I love that you're a speaker. I'm kind of curious, when did you started speaking, and what is your attitude towards, speaking as part of your business?
It's a much longer story of why I've spoken so long, but I've been doing public speaking since I was 8 or 9. The most
Hmm.
people I've ever spoken in front of live was 5 or 6 thousand people.
Wow, that's
Uh,
a number.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's this weird part that, I mean, if you've ever spoken in front of that many people, it's kind of weird. There's this inversion that happens when you're in a group of 20, 30, like we were in there in LA. Your group, your Dunbar number is below that. So you can have a personal connection with all those. But as soon as you go beyond that to that 5 or 6 thousand, it completely blurs. Your people are no longer people. They're just these little, you see lights, and that's about it. So that's an interesting part of it. The reason I think that speaking is so important is there's a software engineers aren't the greatest speakers usually. And so what I didn't realize, and I wish I would have realized much earlier on, was this ability to speak is completely unique, but at the same time being highly technical and understanding all this, if you could marry those two things, you would be this very unique person that people would pay in order to speak well, in order to communicate well. So for me, speaking is about communicating ideas, but I don't feel the need to lord it over people. So I may know much more about big data than people, but my challenge, or the thing I challenge myself to do, is to explain that in a way that anybody can understand it. There may be lay people in the audience, which is often the case, or there may be managers who aren't as deeply technical. So I've always challenged myself to try to explain things as less technical as possible, as understandable as possible, to
Mm.
try to use as few acronyms as possible. Uh, or explain them. Or one thing that I do that's unique, and I often talk about this in my intro, is that I use Legos and playing cards to explain some pretty complex concepts.
What?
So if you go on my YouTube channel, uh, you can go to uh, jesse-anderson.com, or excuse me, tiny.jesse-anderson.com/YouTube will take you to my channel. And um, I explain how Hadoop works with playing cards. I explain how HDFS and Kafka works with Legos. So I have a pretty significant number of views just because I explained them that way. And what's interesting there, no, it's not that one. Uh,
Okay.
but if you go on the channel, look on the channel, there's one that's just there for Legos, or if you do the search there, there's an entire playlist of just Lego stuff.
Mm.
And I'm not sure how far down it
Oh
is.
yeah, playing
But
cards and Lego
yeah,
demo.
yeah. So what's interesting about this is, there's my hypothesis as a speaker, as an instructor, where I say, okay, I've seen this work effectively. So there's the video of me showing how I believe that's Druid or maybe Kafka with Legos. I can't remember.
Kafka. This is
I
Kafka.
think
That's correct.
Kafka. So how Kafka works with Legos. And so there's me as an instructor saying, hey, I know this works, but then a professor from a university in Florida reached out and said, I want to study this because been using your methods and I want to publish this and do research on it. And so uh, he did the research on it and showed a few things. He showed people understood it faster, people
Yes.
retained longer,
Yes.
and they could understand it much faster. And we showed this through research than traditional methods. And what's interesting there is that I want as a speaker, we're not just a speaker. I think that we're there to teach, and we're there to show people either future possibilities. We're there to get them to learn something new. We're
Yeah.
not there as intellectual entertainment.
Although entertainment is one of the retention techniques, kind of, sort of. I mean, that's the use of Legos versus just didactic, lecturing is one of the ways that our good friend, Tony Robbins, really looked at edutainment. Edutainment, only, as a fact that America's addicted to entertainment. That's the worst part. It just really is. And by the way, I just wanted to add this part here too. Dunbar number of stable relationships people are cognitively able to maintain at once. The current number people have said, or at least Dunbar proposed, was 150, which is like after the company hits the size of 150, something else happens. All right.
Wow.
So,
You're like a
and I
little
want
encyclopedia back there.
to.
I'm gonna fill one of my sentences or paragraphs with a whole bunch of things, and you're gonna have to unpack it for 10-15 minutes.
Well, here you didn't see the like Jesse too because you only saw me in the real world. This is my virtual world. This is what's in front of me right now. This is your
Oh,
website
it's
here.
you.
This is the Atlantic with the definition of Dunbar, right? This is you and me right now on Zoom. Actually, I have a new. This is a new teleprompter, so your video's in here. So when I'm looking at you in the eyes, right, it actually looks like I'm looking at you when we talk. And so, yeah, this is the amount of tech that I run in my home studio is 14 screens.
Did you see the new technology demo from NVIDIA to do eye centering? Did you see that?
Oh, yeah. I've written about it. I've written about it and seen it in action.
Oh, maybe it was something that you liked, but I thought, man, that was pretty crazy. The guy was going like that, and it kept the eye line the whole time. I was completely blown away.
People still feel weird about it. Overall, it's what I've seen. So something is not quite right. And this is like, again, the soft stuff is hard. How do you make technology that is solving a problem, which is eye contact, right? Which is when I'm doing this, right? And still have it feel natural, and even, or make it even better. Like Zoom's, image enhancement is actually better. People like that, like, because it will smooth out your skin, even if you have a bunch of blemishes. And so that's a piece of tech that works. The makeup is kind of, you turn your head and all of a sudden you've got eyelashes floating around on your head. And so that's a tech that doesn't work. So I'm looking for things like that. The noise cancellation in Zoom now has gotten really good. In fact, I've even solved technical problems. I had a board that was humming or it was putting like static in there. And if I turn on the Zoom cancellation, this is a case where I couldn't fix it for the in-person audience, but Zoom's cancellation actually fixed it for the virtual audience. And they immediately got happier. Actually, I want to go back to that too, Jesse. That virtual audience in a hybrid. I have this saying that most of the time that virtual audience is treated as a second class citizen. Have you seen that? And what fixes would you have for that poor virtual audience?
Yes, I've seen that at that conference that we were at. Definitely treated that way, where there's no engagement. Probably the most difficult thing I think for hybrids is to train people who aren't used to doing hybrid or have done one or the other their entire life to now say, okay, now we need to think about not just the people that are here, because we can completely fixate on those people that are here and
Yeah.
forget about those people online. And I think it's up to the speaker or perhaps the host, depending on what sort of things you're doing, to make that reminder of saying, yes, there are people online. Shout out to them. Hi, everybody who's online. Hey, do you have a question? I want a question from somebody who's online rather than I'm just going to take all these things that are here in the audience because I can see them. It's really tough to be online. I think it's tough to be for them and for the other person, but I think it's even more so for that person who's online. And I think that we need to get a little bit of coaching for those people doing the
Yes.
hybrid events to say,
Yeah.
hey, this is what, and it's not a lot of coaching, I think. I think it's just some reminders, or maybe it's a flashcard. You know how at a in-person conference they'll give you a flashcard of 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, talk, applause is one, and then throw it out to the online people. There we go.
Ooh, I'm going to think about that. One of our well, and let me just check, Jesse. Are you a member of any speaker organization in what you're in Portugal, right?
No, not I'm in Portugal, but no, not member of any speaker organization. I've heard of them. I just never have joined them.
And the reason why I'm saying that is that I'm a member of National Speakers Association, or NSA, not the security people. And many speakers are coming to me and saying they're confused in hybrid. They're confused because they're used to in person. That's where they started, most of them. Then a lot of them adapted to virtual, so they figured enough of it out to be successful. But then hybrid walks in, and now they're like, where do I look? Where do I go? Who do I address? You know, we gave 3 tips at Learnapalooza. That was a learning-based, L&D-based conference that we held here in Seattle. And to all the speakers, and the 3 tips we gave them is, number 1, acknowledge the virtual audience as soon as you start your program, right? Just say hi. Whatever it is, just acknowledge the fact they're there. The second one was take your first question from virtual, even if there aren't any. At least ask. And then the third one was, geez, I don't remember now. What was our third one? Oh, I think it was like end on a high note. Find a way to end on a high note, or design your exercises to include both. And we can do it, like a breakout, like a table exercise. We can do that, but we're going to do a technical version of it. And there's an in-person version of it. We also found that a virtual MC was one of the best practices, Jesse, because there's a dedicated person watching it exactly the way a virtual attendee would. But the whole key is they have a direct line to the tech team, and they would tell you things like audio's too low, video's blurry, right? Wrong angle, and tell you before the chat blows up. That's one of my goals as a virtual MC is can I fix it before the virtual audience starts complaining? And if I do that, then because then we get back to the same part, Jesse, which is learners should just be able to focus on the content. And if you do your job as an AV, then they have been able to do that the whole time, as opposed to focusing on what's wrong, or I can't hear, or I'm something is impairing my ability to learn here. So those are some of our best tips. I don't know if you have any other tips to add to that.
I would add one, and if people were really watching me closely, they saw me move the window, the Zoom window. I wasn't happy with my eye line because if you looked, I was having to look over here to see John. And so if it's kind of a weird thing to have with somebody's eye line. If they're looking off, that means that you're looking off. You're not getting that good eye contact. And we're used to expecting or wanting that eye contact. So I moved the window up, and depending on what sort of program you're in, some of them you can actually have the breakout of the window.
Yeah.
So for example, Google Meet does that, where you don't have to be in the browser. You can actually break out the actual video, and then I put that video on my monitor, which is just underneath here,
Yes.
and I put it right there so that I'm looking there and I'm not having to remember, oh, don't look over here because that's not my eye line. I'm looking right there and not having to remember.
And even if you don't have the setup, one of the top tips I've always given virtual speakers, right? Make your key emphatic points to the camera, right? Even if there's not a video there, is that if you do that, you can wander off, right? While you're speaking, like I'm thinking about another story or something like that. But if you come back and just remember that we have people who, the low tech advancement was putting a post-it with eyes on it over the camera to remind you that that's where the people are. So funny. Oh my goodness. What else, Jesse, for you? What has to happen for you for a virtual meeting to be engaging? Since I'm assuming that you clock quite a few virtual meetings too. What has to happen to be engaging? Do you have an example in the last 3 or 4 years of like your best virtual meeting or conference?
I think it was the engagement from the audience that, for me, a lot of that starts like to your point before about a lot of people coming from the in-person and going to the virtual and having to do that.
Yeah.
I know what the beats are because I've done it in front of a lot of people. When you're doing new material, whatever that new material is, a new talk, a new class, what have you, you may not know the beats. You have some pretty good idea of what those beats are, but the engagement is that the people are talking to you, the people are giving you feedback. So one of the things I realized is that the visual cues when you're online are not there. So when I'm looking and I'm speaking about something, I'm looking for exactly what you're doing. I'm looking for nodding heads. I'm looking for good rapt attention. I'm looking for people coming off their phones. Like I just
Yeah.
gave a conference talk in Austin, and for the first time in probably a while, people were not on their phones. There was no phone usage. I looked out, and you can always see when somebody's on their phone because they get that glow. And it's kind of
Oh yeah, this one.
angelic, but at the same time as yes. Uh, and it's fine that they're be on their phones, but it's at the same time, it was interesting that nobody was on their phone. So I knew I had the right engagement. I knew I had the right message and people were nodding along. But when you're online, you may not be able to have that. So it's getting people to turn their cameras on, getting people to interact with you.
Yes.
And what I found is weird, especially even in in-person classes, but I would say it's particular to engineering classes. And that is engineers are inherently introverts and not, let's just put it nicely, not the greatest communicators, but to not put it well as they're really terrible at
Yeah.
both asking questions, at interpersonal skills. And so I realized that some of that engagement wasn't even there during the in-person times where they weren't asking questions. So what often would happen is one or two people would ask questions, and asking questions is two things. It's making sure that they get their answer done, but there's also questions behind that question. Are they not understanding things? Are they following along? I would say probably the most important one is, are they asking the next progression in for example, slides? Because that means that your progression's right. They have jumped to that next thought or that next idea, and you're like, yep, that's coming right up. You're on the right path. You're thinking along. So the opposite corollary to that is I was reading somebody talking about attending virtual conferences, and they were saying, this was a tech person saying, "Oh, I'm going to go to this conference, this virtual conference, so I can have some noise in the background." And that was what I realized, that a lot of the virtual conferences in tech, whereas background noise, they're programming, they're doing something else, they are not a center of attention. And so unfortunately, I've been cutting down my virtual conferences simply because there was very low engagement. I couldn't get people to, hey, put down, stop programming and actually listen to me. This is something that you should really hear.
Well, you'll love this, Jesse, which is I got a complaint at my conference last year, and it says, John, damn it, you're too engaging. I was ready to like fold laundry or work on some slide decks, with this noise in the background part. And it was so good and so enticing that they didn't get anything done. And so to me, it's like the new compliment. The new compliment is you're too damn engaging, right? Because you should like it's a fight for attention in a world
It
that
is.
we have so many distractions to come around
Well, I
and
would
to
take it
say,
a step further in the sort of engineering that we do. It's impossible for you to learn this idly or
right,
in the
yeah,
background. It is not possible. You
it's
can listen
deep.
to this 10 times, 20 times. Unless you practice this, unless your hands are on the keys, you cannot do this. And so I try to stress that to people who don't believe me, and they're thinking, oh, I'm smart, super smart. I can take all this in. I was really good in college, or really good. I'm the best person at my company. No, no, that isn't the case here. You actually have to do this. You actually have to put this effort in.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. If you gotta when I attend a conference, it just goes back to the simple question: what do you want? What's your goal? If your goal is to learn new, right? There's two usual goals, education and networking. If you really want to learn it, then I try and do my best, which is clear my schedule and see if I can really focus on it. And then the presenter has to deliver, which is make it so engaging so I don't tune out, cuz I got 14 distractions right around me. If you start saging on the staging for 60 minutes, right? I will tune you out. I will put you in the background cuz that's all the processing I need. But if it's something amazing and difficult and challenging, then I give it my full attention. Let me ask this, Jesse. You're a tech person. You're on the bleeding edge at times. What do you see for the future? What do you see for the future for virtual and hybrid?
The future. I'm really interested in what the new Apple VR headsets will do for this. I don't know if you've watched the videos yet, but you create this virtual avatar, and that virtual avatar, if you watch the Marquez Brownlee video, they were talking about whatever scan you do. So you do this whole scan process. So if you're well made up and have your good makeup on, your hair done, whatever you've done for that picture is how you're going to look. And so you can be in your pajamas. Yeah, there's the picture. So right there in your pajamas, you can be giving a talk and still look like you're $1 million. Uh, the other part that was we did a field trip at that same conference we've been talking about, and they did holograms. And those holograms were interesting because they were made for speakers. So you look like you were right there. When I took the video of mine, I shared it around, people were saying, I thought that was you, but you were actually behind it. It was that lifelike. So what I'm wondering is there a way for mixed mode where we can actually get and have speakers wherever they are transmit well or transmit without having to be there at these other conferences? And that actually brings out about an issue of, so if people are coming up in their speaking gig and their speaking engagements in their career, if you want to call it that, they have to do the small stuff in order to get to the big stuff. Does it make it so that the big stuff is always going to be taken by these sharks, these 800-pound gorillas, as it were? We're always going to do this because they could be everywhere. No longer is time going to be a constraint, travel, physical location. They'll be able to do keynote after keynote because they can be there. They can be in the sound stage and deliver that same thing. That'll be an interesting thing of what happens there. Do we actually increase the number of big names, or what happens to the small guys? What happens to me? Do I never get to make it big because somebody else is more popular than me and they can be there virtually? I'm really curious.
Well, there's videos clocking all over the place too now, Jesse, that people are walking around with these Apple headsets like on the subway. Like in New York, they're walking around the streets and they're computing, but they can still see the real world, right? So this is like the ultimate and augmented reality, which is that, I tell people all the time, like, this is my version of augmented reality, came true during the pandemic because I can do things like you say your name and I can pull your linked up in, I can read your profile, I can, all these things while we're talking. I can do those things, and that's what I think augmented reality it can be. It was really something I call digital assisted living, right? DAL is that when tech makes your life better, right? And tech should make your life better. Otherwise, it's not really doing the right thing. But I love the vision for it, and I love that some of this stuff is starting to happen, and it may happen in our lifetime, Jesse. That's the really super cool part. All right, let's see. Last question: if you could get people to remember only one thing from this interview, Jesse, what would it be?
The importance of having a beard. Beards are very important.
Movember. This is Asian. This is my
No,
beard for like the last year. This is this is all I got.
I think it's that whatever message you have, take the time to teach. I get a lot of compliments about, I don't talk at you, I try to teach you. And I think that comes from a background of my background of, I genuinely want to teach this to you so that you can motivate you. And I think that's the engagement. It's a teaching motivation, teaching engagement.
Genius. Well, Jesse, I hope you invite me to one of your classes. I would love to see you in your element. Even though I'm here in Seattle, hopefully we can find something on the time zone that would work. If not, I will see you at our next IRL in real life event. And I hope that I will be at the helm in the back of the room. I can tell you that I was at the helm of one of the speakers from that event and their own event. And one of the other guests, the leading guest, was also there as a guest speaker. He was really happy. He was just really happy that everything worked. And not only worked, like we elevated it to another level. Like we were playing music during the breaks. I had multiple people come up to me afterwards going, I don't know who you are, but I just met you and I love your vibe. So that's my hope for you. Jesse, thank you again. We put a link, so check out Jesse's LinkedIn or his website profile. And if you need help in big data or you need a big data speaker, go ask Jesse. Jesse, thank you so much. And is it, wait, now how do I say goodbye in Portugal?
Adios.
Adios. Thank you again, Jesse, for your brilliant time.
Thank you.
All right, this is John Chen. We've been talking with Jesse Anderson, and we hope that you enjoyed this part, which is, one is think about your AV, and two, do your part to get it right. All right, this is John Chen. If you're watching here, make sure and subscribe, share, like, and comment. If you are watching on one of our live streams, go to engagingvirtualmeetings.online and please subscribe if you want a new episode every single Wednesday of the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. Register for our conference, the Engaging Conference, October 1, 2, and 3. Available now for the first time in person, on Zoom, and the live stream. So we have free to in-person tickets available for you. And last but not least, if you want to be the next guest here on the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast, go to this link, engagingvirtualmeetings.com/meet, and select interview. Thank you so much, and figure out what to do with your big data. All of you have it somewhere. All right, thank you, and we'll see you next time. This is John Chen, the author of the Amazon #1 hot new release, Engaging Virtual Meetings. I personally want to say thank you for listening to the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. It is my passion to help you eliminate bad virtual meetings. Make sure that you click subscribe so that you can get the latest episode of the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast with all of the latest ideas. Hey, I want to meet you. If you want to talk about a virtual meeting challenge, or if you want to be the next guest on the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast, just go to engagingvirtualmeetings.com/meet. That's engagingvirtualmeetings.com/meet, MEET, and find your best time to meet up. Thank you, and I look forward to engaging with you online.